Hello, this will be an additional lecture to our Unit 3 lecture on culture. It's going to be over norms and social norms and norm violations. That's a classic assignment, Intro to Sociology, and I wanted to make sure that we had a little additional lecture just on norms so we didn't get it folded into the culture lecture. So this would be Unit 3B, more or less. So, a little shorter lecture, but still important. I want you all to know what norms are. And very simply, norms are the unwritten rules that bind society together. Now, there are norms and there are mores. Mores are the core rules of any culture or any society. Things like our prohibitions against murder, the incest taboo, just the very strictest, strongest rules that you have within a society. Those are the mores. Another term I want you to know is folkways. And folkways are kind of the inverse of mores. They're much more informal rules, ways of doing things, and that kind of thing. If you think folksy and just even the term folkway should kind of evoke that image in your mind. So a folkway is a much less formal rule that kind of binds society. Now norms are what we're going to focus on, and those are rules that bind society. And they range, again, from informal norms, which are things like how close do you stand to somebody in line, hand gestures, personal space, which again is kind of the same thing in line, but where you sit in a movie theater, all these little things that kind of run together. There are also norms that are formal norms, and these are actual laws and rules. So say you're a student and your college says you have to take 32 credit hours in this discipline and 16 here. That is a formal norm, a written rule that has to be adhered to in order to get your degree. Our laws are norms. So there's a speed limit. That is a norm. So that is a formal norm. Informal norm, again, those are the unwritten rules, the things that you're not going to know about a culture unless you live in it. So those are norms and informal norms. And we mentioned culture shock last lecture. A lot of that will come about by not knowing those informal norms. You can read about the rules and laws and those kind of things, but the actual day-to-day things living within that culture, those are the norms you have to learn. When we come to socialization next unit, we're going to focus on how we learn this kind of stuff. But for now, we're going to worry about what those norms are. And the last concept I want you to know about norms, so not only are there formal and informal, on the flip side, there are rewards and sanctions. Okay, and those two terms mean what the words mean. A reward is a benefit. It is something you get for doing something, following the rules. So a reward is a good thing. Sanction is a bad thing. And just like norms, these can both be informal and formal. So for example, again, go back to the college example. If you go to class, pass everything, follow the rules, follow those formal norms in the degree catalog, your formal reward is a degree. That is a formal reward. Now, when you go to the graduation ceremony and your friends and family are there and everyone's telling you how proud they are of you and that sense of well-being and making others happy, that is also a reward. But it is not formal. There's no piece of paper, there's nothing written that says that will happen. Your family may not be wired that way, but most people's families are. And when that happens, that is an informal reward. And those can be very powerful things too, especially on the flip side. So we'll go to an informal example here. And say you walk into class late, start talking loudly, you're on your cell phone, just basically being rude and everyone's staring at you. You have broken an informal social norm. So you're just not following basic rules of politeness. Now, a couple things can happen to you. Now, if you're in class with me, I can sanction you. I can formally say, okay, you know what? You don't get your points for the day. You're not being part of class. I formally punish you with not getting your 5 points for today or whatever. That would be a formal sanction. If you're out driving somewhere and you speed and you get pulled over, that is a formal sanction. Your ticket is. But a lot of times what's the most effective thing and how norms are very interesting is the informal sanctions. So you may not care about those 5 points from me, but if all your classmates think you're kind of a tool and don't want to be around you and you get nasty looks, the fear of getting those dirty looks, the disapproval of others in society, those are informal sanctions, and those have a lot of power. Any society we live in, we internalize those. We make those part of who we are. And in doing so, that's how we get what's called social control. So we don't have to have an abundance of laws and rules. We have laws and rules and policies for the most important things. But most of the time you're not going to kill somebody, you're not going to rob a bank. The very strongest laws we have out there, they're not going to apply to you most of the time. It's not even going to cross your mind to rob a bank or do things like that. The closest you might come to committing a crime might be speeding, very minor things. What's going to matter day to day is how you talk to the waiter at the restaurant, how you interact with your classmates, how do you talk to your kids, all of these things in the day. And these are all governed in large part by informal norms, and the punishments and rewards are informal as well. And you internalize those. You want to see others approve of you. You want to be happy. This happens to be a very strong way to be socially controlled. We want to be accepted. So this makes a nice segue going into our next unit with socialization. When we come to Cooley and Mead and some of our ideas about the looking glass self and how we shape our own identity, some of this idea of social norms and wanting those informal rewards, wanting to not get the sanctions and being laughed or made fun of or gritty looks, those are still powerful. And we'll understand why that is when we come to the next chapter. So this is my little mini lecture on social norms, rewards, and sanctions. Thank you.